All right, guys, today is a really special one. We're talking about subs, and I'm going to teach you how to create subs that are incredibly powerful, really, really friendly to work with, will shake the whole house, and are very efficient, right? They'll do it with minimum amount of volume. So let's take a look. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to 0, the oscillator level, right? So we're going to come out of operator, shooting us just a sine wave, right? And that's going to enter this Waveshaper, right? So right now the Waveshaper is not doing anything. And we're going to use this, which is M oscilloscope. This is completely necessary and it's free. So go grab it like right after this video. I'll put a link in the description and everything, but check it. So we can see our sine wave in M oscilloscope. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage this Waveshaper, and I want you to listen to the sub, and I want you to hear how much it's shaking the room. And I want you to turn up your volume enough that it's actually shaking the room. Like, you should be able to feel your sub to get the import of what I'm about to show you. So, and have a listen as well. Cool. So now let's A/B this. Right. So I want to say a couple things about this. The first is that, one, it sounds mostly like a sine wave. It's not that resonant. However, you can get more resonant, and once it's in a full mix, like a full song, it doesn't sound as bad as it does like if I were to like do this. Right, so that sounds really resonant, but once you're in a full mix, it's really not that bad. I mean, it's less bad in general. Like, it kind of actually sounds really good. It just sounds like you have a sub, and it pushes air really well. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about why. So when I say pushes air, you know, the speaker cones are coming inward, and then they're thrusting outward, back in and out with this sub. Right. So if you were trying to throw as much air as you possibly could at the listener, what you would need to do, and follow me here, it totally makes sense, is you're sucking in the speaker cone. It creates a vacuum, right? It fills up the vacuum with air, and then it pushes that air out at the listener. Now, if you are a sine wave, you're kind of just rocking that air back and forth. It's very, very gentle. And if you actually touch the speaker cone, like touch your speaker cone as you feel these, and you feel that versus this, right? What you'll notice is that we can even slow it down like an octave to feel it more. But make sure that your volume is cranked, right? And that you're touching your speaker cone, but you'll feel, right, versus this. Right, so one is like a gentle rocking back and forth, but the more squared out wave is kind of like an impact massager. And what's going on is the steepness of, right in the middle there, being steep there means that the speaker is traveling very, very fast. Right, and so it's throwing the air at you faster. So what we've done is we've retreated into the speaker faster because it's steep, right, compared to this. So we've provided more force sucking the air in. We've provided more time for the air to collect in the vacuum created by the speaker, right, while this is being flat. And then we throw it out with kind of maximal velocity as well, right? And you can feel, like I said, on the speaker cone, it feels kind of like an impact massager, right? These like quick little pushes, like hits, as opposed to just a kind of a rocking back and forth. And that transfers into the air and into our ears and into the experience of the listener, right? So you push a lot more air. And what I want you to notice is we're still peaking at 0. Everywhere it's going to peak at 0, because that's kind of how Waveshaper works, right? This top line here is 0. And so we were at 0 before. we're just bringing all this other stuff to 0, and we're kind of squaring out the wave as a result. Now, you can do this with Saturator. You just have more control over the shape with this Waveshaper. Now, this Waveshaper is more or less free. It comes with CableGuys, it's by CableGuys, and it comes with Computer Music Magazine, like any of them. You can get an issue of Computer Music Magazine for like $2 or $3 or something like that. And then you can get this and tons of other good stuff from them for free from their archive. But I use this on all sorts of things because it's the most versatile saturator I know of. And when you make subs with it, you can create just the subs that you're listening for, right? Like exactly the kind of harmonics you want. All right, now I'm going to show you another trick. Check this. Now, what I want you to notice about this shape is that the main lines are still completely intact. So if we look at the actual lines that are going from all the way in to all the way out, let me freeze this. All right, yeah, it's doubling back and everything up here. But the actual lines, these guys that go from all the way in and then are going to go all the way down and all the way down, are completely intact, and it's going from still basically all the way at full scale to full scale, right? Positive to negative. Right? And that's what's going to be what pushes the air and really shakes the room. So as long as you can keep that line intact for every single waveform, you're going to have optimal subs, basically. Now, you'll pull or push air a little bit better without this kind of these harmonics up here, but not that much worse. Right, which is to say, when you have this flat line, it kind of does a better job of creating a vacuum, maintaining the vacuum, sucking in the air, and then thrusting out from there. If you jiggle around, you're kind of not really letting the air settle in there, and you do lose a little bit of its ability to push air. However, what you'll notice is it's still like 80-90% effective, and you can put almost anything you want up here. And there's lots of ways that you can manipulate. So let's go over to this sub designer that I'm going to give you guys, but you can easily make your own if you don't work in Ableton. It's literally just sine wave into saturation. I recommend getting this. Like, it's the best one, and it's essentially free. But check it. So I made this sub designer for you. Same idea. It's a sine wave, but we've got some extra tricks now. I have a fully native version of this that doesn't have this last shaper box stuff, but I'm just going to use this one so I don't have to load something new. Yeah, so we have clean subs that we had before, basically. Okay, so let's look at some tricks here. So the first thing is this LFO. What it's doing is it's just wobbling the volume, right? Now, that's going to matter because it's wobbling it really fast right now, and so that's causing these harmonics. If we slow it down, so we've got sync speed, slow speed. Right, so hopefully what you can see is that the volume is going from, instead of just 0, it's going down and then back up and down and back up. And so if you look at in, this would be 100%, and then this would be, less than full volume, right? And so we're going to be moving along this curve, kind of. Right, so it's going to get deeper and deeper through this. So like these last folds, you're only going to get at when we're at full volume. All right, so let's try this again. All right, see how it's folding more as it's going full volume from this LFO? Right, so check it. We can go faster and less deep. If you go to 72, that's actually audio rate. Like it's like another FM. right? See how I'm all the way up, but it's not actually like everything else shakes. But if you're at 72, it doesn't, because that's the exact same frequency as the note you're playing, and that comes in because of this. The rate is equal to 100% the key. 72, I think it'd be 60 if I wasn't at a course times 2, but there's a reason I did this. Right? So if you do 60, that's like half. Right? If you did 84, that would be up an octave. So every time you go 12, it's like, another octave. I think it's a semitone basically per number here. Cool. Okay, so we've already figured out that we can draw in shapes up here, still maintain the line that matters for actually pushing air, and move using this LFO to jiggle around this shape, right? We can also, like I said, grab these right, or grab some of them, and then you can right, so you can kind of stumble upon really nice sounds. So let's go here. So this is oscillator B. This is just regular FM at the same frequency. What it's going to do is it's going to bend the wave a little bit. So check it. Right? Okay, that's because it's making it fast and then slow, basically, at the same rate that it's waving. So there's a fast wave and then there's a slow wave, if that makes sense. Now you can phase that. Right now where it phases at 34. Right, so this is the phase. We're basically taking the wave that is FMing and we're shifting its starting position so that we bend differently. Now, this can get you to be a little bit more effective because instead of like these nice perfectly even da 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 da, it's like a more of a skip. So it's like a every time that the sub is like hitting you, right? So it's a little bit more jagged, which can be more intense, right? Now let's keep going. If we move these up, this is half speed and this is quarter speed, right? These will make it boing, 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 boing. Check it. Here, let me turn off this other one. All right, now check this. Sometimes they're closer together, sometimes they're farther apart, right? So what we've done is we're kind of staggering the timing of these air pushes that the subs are accomplishing, right? We're changing the timing. So we're doing like quicker ones and slower ones, but that kind of makes it more unpredictable and just more intense if you think about it. Let's give a tail. All right, you can make 808s out of this, like super, super easy. Just by going on trigger mode here is how I'd recommend doing it. And then this will just launch. You could set these other ones to trigger mode too if you want. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an 808 version of this, and I'm going to give you the sub version of it. And it's just going to have some other things. Like this shaper box is mostly for 808s, right? You turn this on, and what it's going to do is it's going to re-envelope everything. Not that one, this one. Right, so it's re-enveloping this whole thing. So the reason you want to do this is because if you had a really long envelope in here, that would be more like a timbre envelope, right? What I mean by that is if it stays at full volume, it's going to continue to have this. Right, so let's turn off the shaper box. Right, so it took a while to decay, and because it took a while to decay, it also took a while for these upper harmonics to decay. If I move them over here, it'll take even longer. Right, so if I want a shorter 808, but that has those harmonics in the tail, that's why I use the shaper box. So then I hit this, and it's the length that I want it, right? And then you can get the shape you want. So this preset will come with the rack, but then you can shape it how you want, reshape it how you want, right? And then this, if you the XY thing here, that will actually change the time. So to the left is longer. Cool. And you'll notice all of this, all of the important lines are intact, right? So this is going to push air really well. It's carrying all these harmonics, right? It's, or said another way, this remains steep, right? Because of how rounded out it is or squared out it is. This line, this main line here remains steep all the way through the tail. So even when it's quiet, it's still pushing really efficiently, because when it does go from inward to outward, it does it really fast, right? So what you're going to find is that when your subs look like this, not only can you dial in the timbre so it sounds natural, but it just pushes air way better. And you're going to need quieter subs because your subs are just going to be smashing too hard, right? But this is a good thing because that gives you extra headroom against your limiters and everything on your master chain, right? So by using more efficient subs, you create more headroom for your track, effectively, right? That's not your subs. You can think about your whole track as kind of playing on top of your subs. And if you have a really or like a clean low end, you'll see it too. You'll see like the rest of your song is kind of vibrating up here, and then it's vibrating down there, and it'll be vibrating up there. And so one of the benefits of doing this, like I said, is that it gives you a nice clean top line. Right. So let's take a look at what I mean. Right. So your track is going to be vibrating along the top of this sub, right? And along the bottom of this sub, right? That means that like you have a nice flat plateau upon which you're vibrating, above which you can have your compressors and stuff working. And clippers and everything are going to be really, really honest, right? Now, if your sub was a sine wave, a sine wave is only at full scale for like a sample, right? Look at this. In between this is almost 30 milliseconds, 25 milliseconds from here to here. If your compressor is working even remotely fast, right? It doesn't even need to have an attack or release time as low as 25 milliseconds. It could be faster and it would still, within those 25 milliseconds, it won't release completely, but it will release, right? As a result, you've got 25 milliseconds where you're now no longer up there compared to this. And to be fair, it would be half that because it also counts to be full scale on the bottom. But you'll notice here, you're basically full scale on the bottom the whole way here. And then when you're not, like 90% of this is full scale up there. So you've got like a millisecond or 2 milliseconds or like, very small amount as opposed to like 12 and a half milliseconds or whatever, like half of 25, that you're not at full scale. You have just these little bits that you're not at full scale. So it's not going to mess with your compressors and limiters as much either, because you're going to have a nice flat top to your subs, which are the biggest part of your wave, right? Of your song on your master, right? So your subs are by far the biggest amplitude of anything that you have are going to be nice and flat, and everything else, the rest of your song, can vibrate on top of that and hit your compressors and limiters like honestly, so to speak. Okay, so we've gone over the wobbles, which you get from the lower frequency modulation. We've gone a little bit through this bend stuff. I want to show you one more trick with this bend stuff, like this oscillator. So we're bending it, but then watch what happens when we put up the fine a little bit. Sometimes this guy's screwing up a little bit. It's not doing, that's why I also have this guy going. Let me unfreeze it. Cool. And when we get 1000, then we're at 2x frequency modulation. What there is to take out of this guy is, it's squeezing and contracting. All right. So you can feel the difference in intensity. You can also put this at like 250 or 500, and then it will kind of act like these wobble guys, because that will be in tune, right? It's like half an octave. All right. So take a listen. All right. Put this back down. This should. Oh, there we go. I don't know. There we go. Yeah, it's better to check up here. All right, see like how it's wobbling a little bit as I get away from 500? That's because 500, again, is in tune. So it's like, to some extent, it's perfectly FMing with the underlying frequency. So if you get off of it, it's going to have a beat to it. Cool. Right, and then this 250 is going to be a similar wobble to this guy, right? Because it's quarter speed, right? Right. Okay, so I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover for the most part in terms of what makes subs work, some of the tricks you can pull. Now let's get into some of the more creative stuff. Now, if you don't have the Waveshaper, which you should definitely get, you can do it with just a saturator. This is literally just the Ableton saturator. So you'll notice it's a pretty similar wave. Let me turn off this. All right, we can change the type. Right, so we've got a few options on, and it's kind of like the hardness of those corners when we were doing it in this guy, but this is obviously a lot more customizable in terms of how hard you can get the corners and everything, not to mention all the stuff you can do up here. So I definitely recommend this Waveshaper, but there are a couple cool tricks with this saturator, and you can run one into the other and even EQ in between them, which can generate some really interesting timbres. So let's take a look at this. If we go all the way up, we go into Ableton Saturator's Waveshaper mode. Now we have to have this soft clip on, but if we do that and then we drive into this, even though we have this weird shape, it'll start squaring out. Yeah, now the trick is to maintain that sidewall as best you can. All right, let's take a look here really quick. See how this is kind of jiggling back and forth? I can actually improve this by reducing the pixel size. Cool. All right, so it's jiggling back and forth. Now, this isn't as big of a problem as you would think, because all of these jiggles are very high frequency jiggles, and on at least systems with subwoofers or multiple channels, those are like, like a woofer and a tweeter, like those are going to get separated out, and your subs are still going to push back and forth how you need them to. Like still rock, but however, it's I mean, like the other thing you should be doing is like let this shake your room. You'll notice that it still does a good job. It doesn't get messed up too bad. That's different than I want to show you this kind of thing. Let's turn this guy off for a second. The sub just disappeared immediately. All right, as soon as we fold back on each other in a larger sense, that means our low frequency waves it's like they're going from all the way in to all the way out or whatever, but they're like halfway through, they're like, yeah, let's double back and let's not. And then they go again. And so it's broken the trip into two. Right, and you'll be able to feel it, right? So as soon as it turns that corner, right, the sub just gets compromised completely. Yeah, that's kind of the lesson there is, but there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do that doesn't compromise with this. And then, like I said, because we've got these two Waveshapers now, the last thing that I sometimes like to do is put an EQ between. Oh, I put one in the right. Is all the harsh edges from this, you can filter those out. Let's get a sine wave. Yeah, so you can create some really crazy, brutal stuff that like, it looks wild, but look at this line, this unbroken line right here, every single time. And I swear you, if you turn up the volume, you'll notice it shakes your room. Like that's a functional sub as well as like a brutal bass sound. I do want to mention though that I put on this filter as well, and the length of this filter is the up and down axis. Right, so you got all these options, right? And then there's also resonance, and you can change these, these shapes and everything, like select all points. And you can get it so that this is instead an LFO kind of thing. Yeah, this is now so fast that it's going like thousands of. All right, and so it's got like all these wild kind of harmonics and squelchy things that come up and artifacts because it's going like so fast. This is the resonance of this over time. All right, so check this. Yeah, it's brutal. However, anytime you do filtering, you're liable to, so we were exactly at 0 this whole time until I turned on this filter, which is why I attached Buzzcut after this, is to make sure that any of these little peaks that happen that are above 0, right? Little peaks get sliced off. Oh yeah, this transient is some pitch envelope. You can shape the transient here. Let's turn off all this stuff and just, all right, we're back to our basic sub, which is still super powerful. And you'll notice it's got a like a punch, right? You take the transient all the way down, no punch. Put it all the way up. Kind of hear what's going on. It's a pew. So that's this pitch envelope. right, so hopefully you get the point. You can kind of shape the transient, how it sounds, just by moving these things a little bit. And then this, like I said, it's just scaling these things and a couple other things, actually. You can see it here, but it's just decay times, basically, and the sustain, right? So you'll notice on this guy, the sustain is at 0, but also the volume out is at 0. You crank this up, the sustain goes down to -6, the volume goes to +6. So briefly, this is going to be over 0, and that's going to hit your saturators and stuff, and that's going to have its own kind of sound. But then the sustain will still be at 0, so you can still mold it and morph it exactly how you want. I want to show you just a couple more things with this LFO. Let's turn off everything. Right, so if we have a really high frequency, it becomes like a sine wave, right? Kind of. But not really. If you look here, it's got different harmonics than you expect just from like adding a sine wave, but we're basically amplitude modulating it, super fast. Yeah, so if you hold shift, you can drag it more finely. If you go to square mode, so if we go 72, every 12 above that, so like 84, 96, 108, and 120 should be, yeah, see how they aren't phased? Yeah, so if we go just above 120, then it will start rolling again. So then we can send this into the Waveshaper. Yeah, that's pretty good. The other thing you can do on this LFO is you can do it to the pitch by clicking on these. So we're on a square wave, just remember. I'm going to change from a square wave. And so 72 again would be audio. And if we get just off 72, then we'll start phasing through again. Got a lot of options to bend and manipulate this. Yeah, and you'll notice sometimes it's yeah, so I think that's it. Yeah, I just recommend making sure those core lines that push the air remain intact and then going crazy from there, because there's really a lot you can do. There's totally one more thing I wanted to show you. This color on the saturator is nasty on subs, because this bass talks about how much it's going to do the bass, right? So this is all sub range, right? We've got width and stuff. Let's turn off this Waveshaper for a second. Cool. I do want to show you one more thing, which is these XY pads, right? That it's the vertical position of the left dot and the horizontal position of this right dot. And so it gives you a lot of ability to come up with shape. You don't even need to open up the Waveshaper necessarily. Shape it how you want. These XY pads, they only work when you drag in a whole track, right? So what I mean by that is you have to drag in .als. What doesn't work is if you drag in this. Let's actually not resave over that. But yeah, what doesn't work is if you just drag in this. Then you'll notice that these XY things are gone. So you can't save an instrument rack. You have to save a whole track, but I guess you can bring in just what's in the track. You don't actually have to pull in the whole thing, right? So you could have like a MIDI track or whatever, or if you had like a drum rack or whatever, you could drag it in this way, and then your XY pads will work, right? Okay, that is it, guys. I know it's a big subject, but this is a super powerful tool. Wait till you use these in your tracks. You're going to be amazed because, like I said, they push air so good. I'm going to see if I can get you these presets, right? So, you can make your own presets, and I made a whole bunch of them for exactly this. Yeah, and then there's a bunch more. So I'm going to see what I can do about actually getting those presets. CableGuys is really cool. They have a preset library. All right, so this would be my library, but I can set these to private or shared, and I should be able to share these all for you guys. And I don't know. I'll figure out like if I need to do a link or something like that, but maybe check the description and whatnot. All right, I love you guys so much. Use these subs. It is, I don't know what you've been using, but this will do better. Like it's so configurable, right? You can sculpt the exact wave you want with this Waveshaper. All the little tricks that I showed you to kind of customize them, you'll be amazed at the kind of things that you can actually put together very simply, and while always maintaining the ability of these subs to push air like hard. All right. I love you guys very much. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Boxing Day, all those things. Thanks again for being on my team, following me, all that stuff. It's been real, and I hope these are useful for you. Check the description for the racks and everything. There'll be an Ableton native version. If anyone wants to make one in FL Studio, in Patcher, or whatever it is, or any other DAW, something cool similar to this. But really, all you need is a sine wave going into this Waveshaper, and that by itself is good enough to crush. All right, love you guys. Peace.